truth has risen. You're listening to the Oracle Broadcasting Network.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions had an echo in so much space. And when you're out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy?
All right, we're back with the American Awakening. Does that make me crazy? I don't know. Does this make me crazy? You know, folks, we've got a guy that's about ready to be inaugurated as our, 44th President of the United States that's a phantom. Nobody really knows who he is, and all of the supposed documentation that is put forth as to attesting to who he is false. So the question remains, who is this guy? And when you take it a step further about who this guy is, if he's not who he says he is, who is he? I'm really afraid once he takes office, we're going to find out a very, very tragic answer. Don, with that, I'm going to give you the floor here. Again, I don't want to get off track, but let's go through some of this stuff here and some of the anomalies surrounding, I mean, the absolute lies surrounding this guy and the people that are covering it up and the reasons why and so forth. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Okay. Well, you know from past shows that I've done with you that I'm very discerning and that my research starts from a discerning position. In other words, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look right, I look for the facts to support what I feel I'm seeing or what I'm feeling. Now, that in and of itself to a lot of people doesn't seem like a solid foundation to begin such a research article on anything or anyone, any topic, yet you know my accuracy and my track record in that regard of being able to discern things that I have no way of finding facts on the spur of the moment other than what I discern is going on. If it's true or it's false or I might pick up a little bit more information. That said, when I set about to debunk all the story of Barack Obama, I knew there was a problem with the so-called mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, the grandmother who you mentioned in Hawaii, Madeline Lee Payne Dunham, and the father, Stanley Armour Dunham. Here's a guy, Stanley Armour, who's purported to be a lifelong furniture salesman, and that the family's bouncing around the planet, or at least around the United States, has everything to do with him getting a promotion in the furniture industry. And while that's going on, Madeline Dunham is working for Boeing Aircraft in Wichita, Kansas, where they are supposedly born. That's a ruse. And then they move up to Seattle, and there's all this obfuscation about the child, when she's actually born, who the real parents are, and I'm speaking of Stanley Ann, the mother of Barack Obama. And then they go up to Seattle, and she works for Boeing, and she becomes the vice president of a bank. They move to Mercer Island, where Stanley Ann attends Mercer Island High School. Then they take the whole family and move to Hawaii because Stanley Armour again gets a promotion in the furniture business, and Madeline becomes the vice president, one of two female vice presidents of the Bank of Hawaii. Why is that someone of such an obscure background achieves such a level of prominence, especially in the financial community? Well, my gut told me that none of this was real, none of it was true, and that it was a story spun for public consumption. Obama himself cannot even spin the story the way the rest of the media has spun it, or the way the CIA has spun it, or the U.S. military, the Department of Defense, and most of all, the German Abwehr, or the Dachau DVD. This is the underground SS that established itself in Oklahoma City. Now, that's a lot of information right there that I just threw at your listening audience, Michael, but it has everything to do with what's in this article and what I found about Barack Obama, about his so-called father in Kenya, all the relatives that really are not related. The CIA has files on the Dunhams and know from saliva samples taken off of glasses that they are not related in any way to Barack Obama. The DNA results are there. Stanley Armour Dunham was an agent working for the Abwehr, so he was working for the Nazis, in other words, and he sabotaged an actual plane that was being manufactured at Boeing, Kansas, in Wichita, and he stole plans to the B-29 airplane and sold those to the Nazis. And one can say, well, how do you arrive at Oklahoma City as the place? Well, the story is Kansas. And I referred to this in the past as the Wizard of Oz story. Dorothy Gale was born in Kansas according to the script of the Wizard of Oz. And if they sold it to us once, they figured they could sell it to us again. The actual matter was that Madeline Dunham's father, Rolla Payne, was an agent for the Standard Oil Company. And here we know, from having studied the history of World Wars I and II, that actually those were oil wars. Those were for the Rockefeller Foundation. Those were for Standard Oil. And so the Rockefellers, mainly John D. Rockefeller and Frank Rockefeller, set up their military industrial complex through those wars, and they had Dunham, the grandfather of Stanley Ann Dunham, the mother of Barack Obama, or the great-grandfather of Obama. And I use that with great hesitation because they're not really grandparents. They're stooges. They're masquerading as grandparents. This is all a farce. This whole story is nothing but a farce. And any judge, any law enforcement person listening to this broadcast could determine that there is enough factual evidence to launch a complete investigation. They're all bought out. So that's why this isn't going on. Now, that said, if the Dunhams were in Oklahoma City, one could prove it if they could be shown photographically. And that's exactly what I did in the article. I was given a photograph of Stanley Ann Dunham in her first grade class at Putnam City Elementary School, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City. In the pictures on within the article, she is 8 years old in a first grade class. She attended Kindernook Elementary School in War Acres, Oklahoma. And I'm told there's a picture of that, but I didn't have the picture to put in the article. As a kindergartner, 7 years old. That's quite unusual. Most kindergartners begin at 5.
Right, yes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so there she is, and she looks somewhat different. Now, one could say, well, that's not really her. The guy who sent me this picture was in love with her. And when he heard her name and read her name in Jerome Corsi's book, Abomination, it clicked. The media had been calling her Ann Dunham constantly, and he heard the name Stanley Ann, and he said that had to be the girl that I had a crush on when I was in school. He told his parents about it. His parents said, well, we're good friends with her parents, meaning Madeline and Stanley Armour Dunham. They were known as being from Chicago and Lebanon. Now, anyone who has read my series of The Three Stooges Go to Washington, especially Part 3, I reveal that Stanley Ann went to school at Notre Dame de Jamour in Beirut, Lebanon. And she was not yet a teen when she went there. So now I found a second piece of the puzzle to track where she was, which is very different from what we've been told. We've been told the family is from Kansas. They went to California and Texas. That's true. They did go to California and Texas, but they were working with the CIA when they did so.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Don, we got to take a break here. When we get back, we're going to cover some more of this. I'm looking at the pictures right now. I'm looking at this kindergarten picture. I mean, this is fascinating here. Folks, stick with us. More to come. We'll be back in 3. Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, with my guest, Don.
Like these. Many people do not